You know, you figure in life that you don't need to be a detective for everything, all right? Some things are better left undiscovered and untampered with, especially if it's a transforming librarian who becomes some sort of demonic monster that you have no defense or way to protect yourself against.
Bad touch, stranger danger.
Aside from running away, utilizing all the plot armor you can in this book. Now, granted, it's a kid's horror book, but you ever thought about calling the police, leaving it to other people, not investigating?
Police! Police! Help! Police! Help! Police! Help!
No, that's why it's a kid's horror book. And on the path to enlightenment through anime and manga, usually on my YouTube channel, we are brought here. Yep, I'm doing a kid's horror book review for Goosebumps, The Girl Who Cried Monster. I'm a big fan of horror, and I'm a big fan of kids horror, especially. And even though this is an anime and manga channel, I did discuss early on that I planned on doing probably some unique reviews for series. So this is going to be one of those. I'm probably going to make a separate playlist for this for horror reviews and other different things. I'll probably put it in one category, and you can probably expect these once a week. So just to throw in a little bit of flair, I thought, you know what? I enjoy Goosebumps. I love reading kids' horror books, so I might as well do a review. And today we'll be reviewing a pretty good one. So far I've read, I think, several Goosebumps books, and I decided, why not start off with a banger? So today we'll be reviewing The Girl Who Cried Monster. Now, my initial feelings towards this book is that it's very good for one reason. It's simplicity. The greatest thing about this book is the fact that it's very, very simple compared to other Goosebumps books I read. I recently read The Haunted School, which was this whole Twilight Zone type of situation. It was an amazing book. I think right now, that's probably my favorite Goosebumps books I've read so far. But the thing I love about The Girl Who Cried Monster is the fact that it's very simple. It takes place literally between two settings throughout the entire book. Well, three settings, but the third one's saved to the end. So it's basically two settings throughout the entire book. The main character, Lucy's house, and the library, which Mr. Mortman stays in. It literally bounced between these two locations back and forth throughout the entire story. However, this book does an amazing job with tense atmosphere, body horror. There's a lot of disturbing body horror, especially in regards to Mr. Mortman's transformation into a monster. You have the whole situation with him eating handfuls of flies and literally just eating turtles alive. Like, it doesn't matter. I mean, Stein did talk about how he originally planned on Mortman eating a child, but that had to be scrapped, obviously, because it would have been controversial. But he replaces it with just animal consumption. Like, it's normal. It's a kid's book. It's a kid's horror book, but you just got a man just eating all types of animals and stuff, and it's disgusting.
He's brave. He's brave.
But it works effectively. It makes the whole situation very tense, and I think that's one of the things that I really like about this specific Goosebumps book is that you have a lot of tense moments that are grounded in realism. The biggest example I would say is the fact that the scene where I think, and I'm assuming her name's Lucy. I mean, listen, Goosebumps books, the protagonists are pretty forgettable. Granted here, she's got a little bit of characterization, which I'll talk about, but they're pretty forgettable, so I'll assume her name is Lucy. But I specifically remember a part of this book in regards to the atmosphere where she's at her house, and basically Mr. Mortman pops up at her house, and it's basically implied right before the chapter ends where we figure out what actually is going to happen. It's implied that he's about to, like, break into her house and just straight up, I was going to say straight up end her. He's straight up going to just eat her alive. That's what it's basically hinted at. And obviously that's not what ends up happening. Stein does that thing between every chapter where he'll set up something and then he'll just completely divert your attention, throw you for a loop, and kind of keep you intrigued. So that is one of the most tense parts of this entire book. The fact that Mr. Mortman, after she basically invades the library, finds out he's a monster, sees his disgusting transformation, and, tries to go back and tell her parents and try to expose what's going on. He straight up pops up at her house. A stranger pulls up to your front door and you literally think he's about to break in. That is one of the scariest things that you can experience, and especially for a kid reading. Any child reading, you get taught stranger danger, and Mr. Mortman throughout this book is just a pure idea of stranger danger. I mean, you have the fact that you see something you're not supposed to see at a building. You have the fact that he pops up at your own house and you think he's going to break in. And third, you have the fact of the end of the book where you go to his house and you see stuff you're not supposed to. So that's a prominent theme throughout the book, and I think it adds a lot to the tense atmosphere, and it makes it very scary, because a lot of the time with Goosebumps books, you have the obvious scare factor. Here in this book, the obvious scare factor is you're dealing with a librarian who can transform into a monster that eats things, and assumingly he's going to kill and eat you. But that stranger danger aspect is prominent throughout the book, and you really wouldn't notice it. You're going to feel scared, and you may not know why, but that is why. I think it adds a lot to the book as well. So that's one of the biggest highlights of this book, the fact that it has amazing atmosphere. And another thing that really is highlighted in this book is that Lucy is a pretty interesting protagonist. Now granted, she has her faults, which I'll get to, but you start off the book with the main characterization that feeds into the title of the book. The main characterization within this book is the fact that Lucy makes up that monsters exist in the real world. You see her mess with her friends. You know, she, like, I guess tricks one of her friends, I think, into, like, a bird's nest is, like, some sort of monster, and he falls for it, and then she just completely pulls the 180. And obviously, her parents yell at her. Her mom, especially in this story, just cannot stand the fact that she makes up monsters. And it sets up this whole conflict within the book. But I think as annoying as that may be to certain people, I think it adds a little bit of characterization for her. Because usually when it comes to Goosebumps books, they always end up being these sort of basic characters and protagonists. Now, obviously, it's a kid's horror book. What else do you expect? But whenever they have that little bit of added, quirkiness or flashiness to them, that kind of allows me to connect with the character more. And it's funny, I mean, she's pretty good with what she does, making up monsters and doing all that stuff. And even when you get later into the story, when she does find out that, hey, monsters do exist, she's pretty brave. She's pretty, like, headstrong that she wants to expose Mr. Mortman. Most of the time in these books, what happens is that as soon as a character gets encountered with the situation, they want to run away, they want to retreat. Nah, she's full head on. She wants to expose what's going on and basically reveal all the deep, dark secrets going on in that library. So I think that's something I'll commend, that Lucy is not only a quirky character, but she's also pretty headstrong. She kind of leads the story. And even though it is instigating a lot of stuff, which, again, in reality, I would not be the one to go to a library and just start instigating the monster and trying to get him to do stuff and potentially risk my life. I'm not going to do that. But she does it. She's a great journalist. I'm sure journalists are reading this book for some reason are going to appreciate that factor of her. And it works well. So that's atmosphere and characterization. And again, plot-wise, this book is very simple. Setting-wise, plot-wise, not much is really going on throughout the entire story. It's a very linear story. But again, linear is not always bad. One of the things I like about this book is the fact that the simplicity helps. And I think that's one of the reasons why Stein's book works so well. Because for those who don't know, I'm a huge anime and manga fan, right? And I am also, like, a lot of series that I like that I review on the channel. I review One Piece. One Piece is an incredibly complex series. There's a lot going on, a lot of world building, a lot of character development, a lot of action, a lot of high stakes. And then you have Jujutsu Kaisen. Yep, I bought my first volume, by the way. I'll talk about that more in another review. But yeah, JJK, it has a lot of horror aspects in here. It has a lot of weird stuff. It has a lot of crazy explanations, a lot of cool characters, and a lot of crazy action and stuff going on in here. So that's why I read it. But the reason why I love Goosebumps so much and kids horror is the fact that it's very simple. So while I have this very complex, crazy anime and manga that I'm into, at the same time I can go to this and it's very simple, it's to the point, but it's effective. And I think that That's what's missing in a lot of horror stuff nowadays. That a lot of people try to make it overcomplicated, when in reality you can make it simple and make it just as effective. And this book is a testament to that. The fact that you can take something very scary, a very intense, very, dark atmosphere, very body horror, detailed book, but you can make it simple, you can make it easy to digest, and honestly, this book is timeless. I think that not only kids would enjoy reading the book, but adults would enjoy reading the book. I mean, this is a book I would say is for all ages. I don't think that this is a book that is specifically targeted towards a certain demographic. You can say that for a lot of Goosebumps books, but I think this one is particularly in regards to that. So those are the highlights of the book that can come immediately to my mind. And of course, you have the ending to the book. Now, the twist ending to this book is very satisfying. I would say it's one of those classic Stein kind of twists, but it works very well. And a lot of people know the ending to this book. I mean, this is a very popular ending. There are certain endings in Goosebumps where they become very memorable. This is one of them, no doubt about it. And it's been done in short stories, I'm pretty sure, as well in the future. So this is a very impactful book as well. And I think that overall, all those factors lead to a very good and timeless story. Now, as for the negatives, I don't have many, but I would say one of the negatives I do have is not more so of a story aspect, but this story gets, not in terms of taking away from the narrative, but this book gets very slow in certain parts, all right? There's parts of the story that are gonna drag on. Now, granted, at the end of the day, it's all worth it, right? Once you get to the end of the book, it's gonna be a payoff, it's worth it. But there are definitely slow parts of this book. There are parts of Lucy returning to the library which become repetitive and you will get frustrated. Now, obviously, some of the frustrations are because of plot armor and other stuff, but you will get to points in this book where it'll get pretty frustrating. You might wonder what's the point of this book. And even though it is basically this kind of investigation expose of, Mr. Mortman and the fact that he's a monster and what's going on in the town, it kind of bounces back and forth. It doesn't really have a solid direction. But again, you may feel that way towards the middle of the book, but as you get to the end of the book, it's going to be worth it. When Lucy goes to Mr. Mortman's house, sees him eating various creatures, doing a lot of crazy stuff, she pulls up right behind her, and then of course you have the very ending, twist ending of the book. It's all worth it. So I think that despite the fact that the pacing may have a little bit of rockiness, overall the book is very good. So in terms of how I would rate The Girl Who Cried a Monster, I would give it a solid, I'd say 4 out of 5, 4.1 out of 5. So on a 10 scale, I prefer the 10 scale, I would give this book an 8.2. I think it's a timeless book. I think it's very good. Is it by any means like the most revolutionary Goosebumps story? No. I've read Werewolf of Fever Swamp, and I've read The Haunted School recently, which were absolutely amazing. I would rank those books very highly. And I'm sure there will be more books to come. But this one is simple. It's to the point. You'll remember it. And honestly, this story, because of how popular it's been, has been replicated across many other stories to come for Stein. You'll see stuff in this book that got carried on to future stories in Tales to Give You Goosebumps, future books as well, and even media outside of Goosebumps. You'll find it in other kids' horror books, themes and aspects of the story. So I think that's a testament to why it's ranked a certain level. And that's my first Goosebumps review. I mean, listen, time passed by fast in this one. I might have been rambling at a couple points. I'm sure later on, as I talk more about these kind of books, it'll have more structure to it. But the way I do reviews, I don't really go in a particular structure. Otherwise, I would end up making an extremely long video. So those are just the highlights of this book and what I liked about it. I hope you enjoyed this review. And in the future, I'll be hoping to drop one of these once a week. After that, I'll probably get a rhythm of it, figure out what I want to do in terms of the variety of books. But I will continue reading Goosebumps and continue doing reviews. So I hope you like this horror aspect of the channel, and I hope it'll bring a brand new variety and freshness into the content that you enjoy to watch. And I hope for all of you guys out there who haven't been seeing a lot of people review Goosebumps, you now have another content creator who will be joining you in that, and it feels like you're talking to a friend about it. So if you like this, make sure to like the video to help out the algorithm for this video. Make sure to subscribe because we got to build up the fan base to the channel and create the army. And share around this video if you enjoy the content because it'll be a big help to me. And the number one point of this YouTube channel is for me to entertain you guys. I want you guys to feel like you have a friend you can talk to, someone you can connect with, and overall get some good reviews to series that you enjoy. So until next time, I will see you for potentially an anime and manga review. And for next week, I'll come up with a new Goosebumps book to review. So for now, see ya. You think I was gonna rate this piece of fucking pig shit? This piece of fucking sausage mixed with rat doo-doo in the jungle's processing plant? Do you think that this is what I was gonna give it, bruh? This story's fucking ass.